You're listening to Offer Accepted, the show that is all about fostering careers in real estate and growing your real estate team. Your host is Vanessa Rosenblum. Vanessa is the president of a search firm called Pro REA Staffing, where they help real estate agents hire talented people so that they can grow their businesses. On this show, Vanessa interviews real estate industry professionals from real estate assistants to team leaders of mega teams to learn how they achieved their current level of success and what they're doing to rise to the next level in their career or business. Whether you are exploring a career in real estate or you currently run a large real estate team and you want to be better at recruiting, training, and managing your employees and agents, this is a show you'll want to follow, so don't forget to hit subscribe. All right, let's go to the show. Here's your host, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. Welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking about becoming a leader. We're going to talk about that transition phase that agents face when suddenly they're responsible for an employee and they have to learn how to be an effective manager and an effective leader. And we're going to talk about that same process from the lens of a real estate assistant who is growing into an operations manager. These are the same but different experiences. And I'm excited to have Kathleen Metcalf on the podcast today to discuss this topic. Kathleen is a friend and a colleague who I've worked closely with for several years. And in fact, we are now sister companies under the Black 29 Group umbrella. Her company, Atlas Real Estate Coaching and Training, picks up where Pro REA Staffing leaves off. She trains real estate assistants and she coaches real estate teams. She also conducts workshops for agents and their teams to help them get into alignment around vision and values, and she helps them create a roadmap for success together. So I can think of no better person than Kathleen to talk about managing the growing pains of becoming a leader. So welcome to the podcast, Kathleen.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to be with you, but this is a particularly exciting event for you and I.
I love this. You know, I always love having these conversations with you because I always learn something and I get a lot of, yes, I'm not the only one who feels that way. It's always very exciting. And I remember when we first started working and collaborating together, we would have these conversations and we would say, why aren't we recording this? This is so good. Other people need to hear this. And so finally, I have a platform where we can do that. So we're just going to have a chat all about leadership, and I'm going to pick your brain, and I'm really excited to share that with the world. So thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right. So let's just talk about the real estate agent's job description. So when an agent is ready to hire their first assistant, they focus a lot on their assistant's job description, which makes sense. But sometimes they don't think about the fact that their own job description is about to get a major overhaul. So can you talk about that experience and what agents need to think about in terms of their own job description when they hire?
Yes. So an agent's role is primarily to prospect or do lead generation, to do lead follow-up, to go on appointments, and to negotiate contracts, which is the acronym PLAN, P-L-A-N. And that should be 80% of their job. So as a business owner now, right, and they have employees, so they have staff. They are also a part of whatever brokerage firm that they have, whether they have their own or they're a part of one. So they still have accounting work, expense management, hiring, feedback to staff. And so there is still a 20% where they need to run the business, but 80% of their time is really as a rainmaker. And one of the exercises agents can do to decide what should their admin do is actually to do a time and motion study over a period of days, where from when the time they get up to the time they go to sleep, they can keep track every 15 to 30 minutes of what kind of task did they do and how much time did that take. And if it was not sales generating and it was sales servicing or administrative or operational in any way, then that becomes beginning of the job description and the separation between income generating and income servicing that the agent can do for how they're going to now shift their own role as they create a new admin role.
And then now they also have duties like managing HR, giving feedback and accountability, overseeing this other person, and that has to factor into that 20% too. And correct. I think it's Do you ever have conversations with people who are either they've just hired or they're thinking about hiring and they need to think through whether they really want to take on those additional responsibilities?
Yes, I hear resistance from agents that really don't want to be managers. They don't want to have that responsibility. And yet they have hired 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 staff members and want everyone to just do their job and not require anything from them. They just don't want to do those tasks that they've hired someone to do. And that is a painful place to be for really everyone involved. So the perfect balance in there is that you like people well enough that you want to see them be successful and excel, and you're willing to contribute to that as the business owner, as the boss, and that you have hired people who are self-starting, who do like to take initiative, who are willing to accept the risk that comes along with maybe making a mistake and not doing everything exactly, one particular way. If you hire those people, they are easier to manage. But you do have to take on management responsibilities and leadership responsibilities, which are similar but different when you have people who work with you.
So let's talk about the difference and let's talk about managers versus leaders. What are the differences and what does that mean?
So managers, and there's all kinds of resources about this, right? I mean, there's just hundreds and thousands of books about this topic. So managers are in the business who are really paying attention to controlling that certain processes happen in order to get to the results that have been desired. So they are more like the foreman, in kind of a manufacturing environment, who is shepherding things to go through a process to get to a result. The leader, so now if we talk about leadership, which is really about holding the vision of what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this? And how are we any different than anybody else who's doing this? Because last time I counted, I think there were pretty close to 3 million real estate agents. Mm-hmm. Right when the economy dipped, we got down to 900,000. But we, in the United States or even in North America, are somewhere usually between 2.5 and 4 million real estate agents between Canada and the United States. That's a lot of real estate agents. And now, granted, 20% of the population of real estate agents does 80% of the business, in that ratio too. But what separates us from our competition? So what is our vision? And the values of a company do determine what makes you unique. And then it also determines the culture of the company that you're working for, because that's one of the big distinctions from being a sole proprietor to becoming a business owner who has staff. It is a shift from selfishly how you want things to go and just thinking about yourself and how you do things and what you want to do next and your clients, to thinking about the whole of the business, how that's going to function, and then keeping everything in its proper perspective. But it's now unselfish. It's now about us and not just about me. And, I'm listening to myself as I talk, right? Because I live a microcosm of what all of the agents go through in going from being an individual coach to, being a part of a growing company with growing staff members in terms of numbers and responsibilities. So I'm living the dream myself. I get it. But it is that distinction between us as a leader and then process and taking care of all the nuts and bolts as a manager.
And I think Simon Sinek talks about this in such a beautiful way, about how when you're a leader, you are there to serve the people who follow you. And your job is to lift them up and to support them and to remove roadblocks and to empower them to be the best that they can be. And by doing that, they are able to execute your vision. And so if you come in and you now have employees, but you think it's all about you still, you've completely missed the point and you've missed the opportunity to contribute in a really meaningful way to these people who have signed up to help you on your mission. And yes. And you really sell yourself short, because those people will get tired of you and leave. I mean, I see it all the time. Yes. Right? Well, and I want to go back to what you said about really understanding what your vision is and what makes you unique. And this comes up a lot for us, especially now because we have such low unemployment. We are borrowing employees from other companies. Very few people are unemployed. And what we see time and again is when a company is really clear about what their values are and what makes them unique, and they stand out and they stand in their truth, those jobs get filled. The ones who are kind of vanilla and they just, we're here to serve our clients and we're in the top 20%, rah, rah. Nobody cares. Like, you have to offer a lot of money if that's all you have to offer in terms of what makes you unique and your vision and why people should join you. Do you help agents figure that out? I mean, I know that's sort of a marketing exercise. We have to figure that out on a marketing perspective, but the same thing applies when it comes to building your team. So do you talk about that with agents?
I do. I have to some extent in my coaching practice, and now as the president and lead coach at Atlas, I'm definitely doing that on a much broader scale. And this was a process of discovery for me too, because in the beginning of my work as a coach 6 years ago was from also having another 6 years of market research of being the admin for a real estate coach and listening to her coach 65 people a week for 6 years. And then having been an agent and been an admin myself in San Francisco, so I began to put together over the last 6 years in particular, these trends of why were these problems happening on their team? Why were people not on the same page? Why did they have these behavioral performance issues? And I began to gather my own evidence. I'm no Brene Brown in terms of research scientist, but, this is my own level of research of case by case, realizing, there's no vision. And there's no shared values that are established on the team that everyone has agreed to, like, yes, this is how we're going to perform together. And so people come in, and the example that is my favorite is everyone who comes to work on the team brings their luggage. And when they get to the job and you give them a space where they work, they open their luggage and they unpack whatever they have in their luggage. And what lives in that luggage are all of the culmination of habits, direction, what was acceptable from previous jobs, previous bosses, previous companies, and their families. And so it's this melting pot of, well, that's the way we did it at the other job, and that's the way my dad always taught me to do it, and so that's what you have. And it might be great, and it might not be great. And they might not match. And so that really becomes a pivot point, where now we are having 2-day live events at Atlas to do this work in person. We've also created an ebook that takes agents through the exercise of what is your vision and what are your values, and then what are the goals that you have for your business, and how does that roll down to the goals of other members of the team and the standards of performance that you want, particularly admins. Because salespeople have goals of achievement. Admins can have certain goals of achievement, but they also have even more quality performance standards of what you want them to do in order to reach those goals for the company. And then this is where you and I definitely collaborate, which is what are the roles you need on the team in terms of people and job responsibilities in order to achieve what you say you want to achieve. And then the more people you have, the more your culture is impacted by what are the values that everyone is living by and what is the vision of the business that you want to achieve. So now you've really got to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So what I've also found is that exercise, not only for the agent, but then for all of the other team members, is very difficult to facilitate all by yourself. It's difficult to facilitate in a 1-hour video conference. And over the phone. So having a 2-day live event is really a dream come true for the participants who gave us fantastic feedback from our first event in Toronto. So we're going to do 9 more this year so that we can reach as many people as possible, so that getting on the same page is getting easier and easier.
I love that. I think it's so necessary, and I'm so excited to help those teams add more people in the future, because they're going to be able to be really clear and articulate who they are, where they're going, what they're all about, which makes my job so much easier. And I could do it. I'll take whatever I can get to make these searches easier. So let's go back a little bit and let's talk about some of the challenges agents face when they are first in a management role. When you're working with somebody who has just hired their first assistant, what are some of the big rock challenges that they seem to face?
One of them is time, and how they are now going to manage time and some level of structure. So for agents that live by a schedule and they are already accustomed to time blocking and having certain tasks done at certain times of the day. So if they do lead generation in the morning and then they check in and then they go to lunch and then they have afternoon appointments, it's easier for them. For agents that are more spontaneous, that prefer to do things as they come, this transition tends to be a little more painful, a little more awkward. And so we try to find the compromise in there of what that looks like to still do their job, but to be able to check in, confirm what's happening, what the tasks they're no longer doing, make sure that person has a proper training to do the tasks that they've been asked to do, and then that the quality level is coming to the level that the agent wants. So I also really talk with agents, admins, teams about the pursuit of excellence and not about perfection.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
Because perfection is deadly. No one, it's elusive.
Yeah.
No one can quite find it. No one can quite keep it. It's like the Jerry Seinfeld episode where he talks to the rental car lady about the fact that she knows how to take a reservation for his car, but she doesn't know how to hold the reservation because there's no car for him. So it's the same kind of idea, like, wow, how come this perfection thing, it was right once and then we never got it again? So it's really about that vision, what's the quality that you want, the feedback that comes, but that's all a process that agents have not had to do if they had all the tasks in their mind where they knew what to do. It wasn't written down. So now this new person has come into an environment where there is no documentation, or some documentation, but probably not a lot. And they're building process while they're learning the process that the agent wants them to follow, and then actually getting their arms around it from a skill and proficiency to be able to do it over and over again perfectly, with a high level of excellence.
Right. Well, and I see agents who say, well, I just need someone who's experienced, because they imagine this person who has done this for somebody else walks into the office and they say, great, you're here. See you later. Thank you very much. And they're shocked and appalled that not everything is magically getting done. And, Mark Von Kanel, I just interviewed him for the podcast. It'll come out in a couple of weeks, hired an assistant for his office who had no real estate experience at all. And he said she was the best hire he ever made because she had the basic skills, the core skills, customer service. She was an executive assistant. She was a project manager. She worked as a wedding planner. So if she could deal with brides on their wedding day, he figured she could deal with real estate, and he was right. And he said, so he has systems in place. His business has been around for a while, but he recognized that if somebody has those core skills, it's a lot easier to get them up to speed. He's had people come into that role who had lots of real estate experience and couldn't catch up quickly. And so I think we get hung up on, they have to know how to use the MLS, when really you're still going to have to explain how things work in your office. Why don't you just focus on those core skills that you can't teach, those experiences that you can't manufacture, and then accept that no matter what, you're still going to have to train and be on site and answer questions and provide feedback, because they all need training. They all need onboarding, no matter what.
Right. It's a fantasy that there's not going to be a learning curve. And I would describe it sometimes as there are skills that you can train, and there are some skills you have to buy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that.
You want to purchase them, and they come at a cost based on what is that skill level worth in your marketplace, and then what is that skill set in the job. So I often use wedding planners or people who work at convention or hotel centers that have multiple parties going on in different ballrooms or meeting rooms. That is the job of a real estate assistant. Every file is a party.
Mm-hmm.
And has its own set of requirements and catering, and whether they're going to have birds, released at the toast, or there's going to be a band or an alligator, whatever they got going on in there. And so every transaction is like that. And so if someone already has high sense of urgency to be able to prioritize, knows how to take initiative, who's able to organize and keep things straight, who is able to create systems as well as follow them. I have found out the hard way, there are some administrative people who really have more strongly honed skills to follow just by their experience or by the way they have learned to think so far, but they're not as great at developing systems, and they have really struggled with that. So they have failed in an area where there were very few systems. But the real estate industry, while it's quirky, is also something people can learn. And let's face it, no matter how long you have been in the industry, I have 17 years. I think I said 19 the other day. It's 2002. I have 17 years this year of the real estate industry. And I'm still hearing and seeing things for the first time. Like, I didn't know that. There's always some quirky new thing in a deal that everyone is still learning. So I don't think it also has to be that they come in where they've had a few years of experience, and then if they have not honed those really strong operational administrative skills, they are still going to suffer, even if they know how to negotiate after repairs.
Right. Let's talk about delegation. This is one of those first hard things for any new manager. I've done this a long time. It's part of my identity. I read this in, The Founder and the Force Multiplier, which is a great book about the relationship between an agent and their director of operations and how they work together. And he talks about how as his company grew and he let go of tasks, he was letting go of part of his identity. That was part of who he was. He did that thing, and now he didn't do that thing anymore. And that was really hard. And so he would find himself kind of circling, this admin's desk. We've joked about this before, just like looking for problems to solve, things to fix, ways to be useful, instead of doing what he's supposed to do now. And I see that a lot. And I think if an assistant isn't strong enough to push back and to keep their boss in their lane, then that delegation piece gets really muddy. So how do you coach agents around this piece of becoming a better manager?
So there's a couple of pieces here. One is I recently reread the book, The E-Myth by, is it Michael Gerber? Yeah. Michael Gerber. The E-Myth Revisited is the one I have. And he talks about the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur. And many people start a business because they are a technician. They do something, they know, they like to do it well, so they do more of it. And when you begin to hire people, you go from being the technician to the manager to really being the entrepreneur. And that is what I also see for real estate agents. If they have been processing everything and handling everything and making every phone call and talking to all the vendors and checking up with the title people, and that's technician work. And so I do think there's also a satisfaction in that work because it is more immediate, where something gets done, you check it off the list. So it does have a little bit of a poof of, I got that done kind of feeling. And then the shift happens. So many times when I work with agents who are struggling with letting things go, I describe it as all of the attention to detail they have going on in their mind about the tasks of the transaction needs to be transferred to all the leads and all the lead follow-up and all of the relationships with all of those clients that are going to turn into a referral or repeat business, they have to trade those memory bites.
I like that.
Because that's how you make it rain.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you talk about the little poof, that little endorphin, because that reminded me of when I stepped out of recruiting. And I remember those days of feeling a little bit lost. I don't have a pipeline to manage. And I would get back in there and it felt so good to read read resumes, because it was like, done. Felt like I'm doing something. And my team, God bless them, they very nicely told me to get back in my lane. I wasn't helping them do their job. Get out of the way. And thank goodness. But that was such an aha moment for me, because I remember earlier in my career hearing from assistants saying, they're not out prospecting. I don't understand what they're doing all day. They're in the office reading, my marketing pieces. And I didn't get it until I was in it. And now I have more empathy.
Yes.
But I don't have, no excuses. You still have to get in your own lane, focus on what you need to do, let your admin do what they're doing. But I think the letting go is hard. And so the communication tools that we both share with our clients become really essential. So do you want to talk about some of those ways so if you're delegating, how do you know what the heck is going on?
Right. So the transparency and accountability are two very, very important things once you add anyone to your business. You really do have to know what's going on. And you have to inspect what you expect, particularly in the beginning, because it's very hard for new people to self-regulate. They do not know where the boundaries are. They do not know where the scale is. It all feels urgent. It all feels like now, which is all impossible. You can't do everything now. There has to be
And you're being managed by somebody who is probably a high D on the disc, who thinks everything should be done now, which doesn't help.
No, it makes it right. Wait, once you learn to have fun with a high D manager, which I have had the experience of doing, it's really, really great, because high Ds make decisions really fast, and they do have a high sense of urgency. And so, all of that is wonderful once you can get in the flow with it. But in the beginning, it can feel like the hammer. So being able to have, when you delegate, to agree on these are the priorities. And particularly in the beginning, this is when something needs to be done. And this is even how long that might take. I kid agents all the time that I know you think that takes 10 or 15 minutes. It really doesn't. It takes 40 minutes. And in the beginning, you take whatever time you think it's going to take and you double it. Because until they do it 2 or 3 times, it's going to take longer. And that's just part of the learning curve. You can't... you can't stop that. So to be able to show people what to do and then follow up on it, to confirm that what you thought is what you said, is what they heard, is what they understood.
Ooh,
those are
yes.
4 different things.
Very, very different things. Oh, I like that.
So then the communication tools. So it used to be most popular that it was done in email. For most of us, email has become this quicksand swamp of a vortex of time and information. So it's really important that agents and admins are conscious about what you're doing in email and how you're going to really use that. So it has become more popular that agents and admins communicate in other transparent vehicles like OneNote, Evernote, Google Sheets, a Google Doc, a document in Dropbox, software around the transaction management, whatever that might be in your company, the database that I might have a to-do list that pops up. Those have become much more popular, much more common, because it is out of the email realm. Because email is one of those tasks that agents at some point should remove from their predominant to-do list. And we can talk about, some of the nitty gritty about that. But there are ways in which for an admin to sort and scan an agent's email, set things aside for them that they can go over, which could include a summary and a priority list of what's going on. But that needs to be clear. Because then if the pattern is that maybe in the beginning an agent makes a to-do list and gives that to the admin, and then at the end of the day the admin says what got done and sends that to the agent looks at it at night or first thing in the morning, and that goes around, which is fine. But notice that that's the agent telling the admin what to do. That is a preliminary, elementary level of delegation. If you keep that pattern forever, you really have a clerk that you're delegating to, who's dependent upon your direction perpetually. It's a training phase, even for someone who's experienced and sophisticated, because they need to know what's important to you. But if you want someone to take initiative and be highly responsible and take personal responsibility for their area, their job description, then they have to be making decisions about what to do and prioritizing, and then giving the agent updates, asking questions. So it has to shift responsibility after the training phase. And I actually am beginning to work on a visual model of the dynamics of building initiative, because it doesn't just happen. It's actually the result of a process. And part of the process of taking initiative is confidence and proficiency.
That makes sense.
And there is risk-taking in it. I've also learned that only an individual person can build their own confidence. You cannot build someone else's confidence. It's like you can't change someone else's mind. You can't do that. You can provide the information for them to build their confidence, but then they have to be willing to do it. So Sarah Weaver, who works with you, and I have also started to talk about this topic as we've been traveling to the Alliance by Atlas events and work and teaching and talking in real estate offices. There's actually this revolution happening in the workforce, where more and more employers want people who will, take the ball and run with it. And the workforce has been trained to follow directions and to be more, rigid in terms of what they do, the perfection of keeping things in a certain box. And I'm making sweeping generalizations, of course, but there is more and more freedom that bosses want people to take, and more responsibility. And that means that the administrative population is actually going to have to participate in freeing themselves to be able to do that, to be able to recognize how much power they have to influence the business. And I have such a genuine enthusiasm for this, because being in administration in a real estate office is a fabulous career. It really, really is. And you have had some people on your podcast who have grown in their career inside the same team, the same business, while they blossomed into more responsibility. And part of that is because they also allowed themselves to be more and more empowered. And so it really does fit into the whole piece of, yes, delegation, yes, communication, and then really the sky can be the limit with where you take that in your real estate practice, which for the entrepreneur should be, sound like angels are singing when you hear that. The possibilities are endless.
Oh, exactly. I mean, everyone who calls me wants somebody who is basically going to tell them what to do. I want somebody to come in, figure the stuff out, and then tell me what to do all day, because it's too much. I have enough on my plate. I don't want to have to tell them what to do. And that's
I just want to make sales.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a process. I say, yes, you can have that, but not on day one. We'll get there. And I'm really excited to hear more about your model, because that taking initiative piece is so key. People call me when their admin is on day 60. Around that time, they'll say, well, they're not really taking initiative. And you have a really great metaphor about this. Will you talk about the learning curve through the first 90 days? Because I think that's so important.
Yes. So the learning curve of any task, particularly over the first 90 days, is you follow, then you learn, then you can manage the tasks, then you can lead people through, whatever that process is. But that it does happen that way. And the first step is the most steep. And so in the first 30 days, usually people are getting a lot of direction about what to do. In the second 30 days, they usually are left a little more on their own because now they've learned how to do this, right? And so it's kind of like having training wheels. In the first month, you have 2 training wheels, and in the second month, you only have 1 training wheel. And so your bike kind of leans, you can still lean in one direction, but what can happen between 45 and 60 days is what I sometimes call the dark before the dawn, because people begin to make mistakes in that second month, because now they only have 1 training wheel and now they're doing more things on their own. And so that's normal. It's totally normal. People learn from making mistakes. That is where perfection really gets in the way. So depending on how the boss reacts when a mistake is made and how the, I'll say new hire, whatever position that is, makes mistakes and how they handle that, if they really beat themselves up, if they are really, really hard on themselves, if they pull back and become more conservative about wanting to do anything else that might make a mistake, now we're in the bad spiral. Now things are starting to go the wrong way. Instead, if the boss, uses each of those incidents to say, okay, so let's look at what went well. These are still things that went well in this process, and here's where, you could make some corrections. So next time, do this differently, do that differently. And this includes if it costs you money, if it, made someone angry. It's still about if the boss reacts well, and if the new hire will also say, oh, okay, right. And they write down in their notes, and keep track of that information and say, all right, so next time I'll do this and do that. And then they also have to keep their courage. They have to keep their vulnerability. They have to keep their persistence to be able to persevere, to learn, and to use it. So just like when you fall off your bike and you skin your knee and you scrape your basket and you do all those things, you get back up and you ride your bike again. You didn't stop doing that just because you got, bumped and bruised, but it did take a team, right, to teach us all how to ride a bike. And right. So, I know that's a very elementary example, but one of the first points is you can praise in public, but you always want to give corrective feedback in private. So you do not say, if your assistant works in an open office environment, oh, Charlene, I can't believe that no, you can't react that way. As you and I have also talked, the personality style that is most common in an administrative assistant person who is organized and compliant to all those things, that is just devastating, because they are so intrinsically wired to please, to hit the target, to be compliant. So it's really a bit soul crushing. So one of my previous bosses used to say that the mistakes that your new hire makes in the first, really, definitely 90 days, maybe even 6 months, are your mistakes. The first thing for you to do as a boss is look at, what could you have done better? What could you have done differently to explain that better, to prepare them for what might happen, to be able to be more supportive about what that was going to really take? And so if you take that angle first, then you learn the most that you can about it as a boss. And to also prepare your, and we'll say new admin, for the fact that it's not going to be the end of the world. It's going to be okay. There is nothing you can't fix. Even if that means that a client is angry or that a deal fell apart, there's going to be another deal. You don't want that to happen. You want to do everything to not have that happen, but it's not going to be the end of the world unless they do something that they know is wrong or provokes something. But if they check in with you, and this is something on an ongoing basis, because I'm working with some admins that are coming up to that level of promotion, right? They're getting ready to take on more responsibility, and they've gotten good at their job. They're in the groove of what they do as an admin, but they now miss opportunities to learn from their agent because they don't necessarily talk to the agent before they take some action. And it's a missed opportunity because then they learn the hard way when it doesn't go as well as it could have if they had gotten some counsel beforehand. So if there is a situation where they're not really sure they have seen all the right angles, if they go to their agent and say, okay, here's what's happening on the 123 Cherry Street deal. This is what I think I ought to do, and this is what I think the consequence of that will be. Am I missing anything? Is there anything that you would want me to do differently? Now the agent has an opportunity to be a coach, to be able to share their experience and their wisdom from all the deals that they've done, to then make an investment in this admin to handle something differently, avoid making a mistake, and be able, to take things to the next level. That is a really great pattern for being able to learn from and then potentially prevent things from going awry. But it's really important that you create a safe environment as a business owner, as a boss, for people to make mistakes and to be honest about it with you, and then come to you and say, all right, I screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought that was going to go. Yes, you want them to tell you, right?
To come to you and tell you. That's yes. So Debbie Sharp is a top producing agent in the San Francisco area, and she has a great line. She says, "I'm just looking forward to making new mistakes." Like when someone makes a mistake, it's, look, yes, we made a mistake, but I'm just looking forward to making new ones. There will be new ones. Let's just not make the same ones again. Once was enough. Let's move forward, make new ones. Which brings up another question. I can hear agents listening to this going, yes, but when is it too many mistakes? When does it become, okay, we're coming up to their 90 days and we have this sort of this framework that we all live by. The first 90 days is the trial period, and then we're really going to commit to each other. And how do I know if this is just a systemic problem or just a learning issue?
So if you have set clear expectations, if you have consistently given both praise for performance that has gone well, praise is not meant to puff up people's ego. Praise tells someone that you want them to repeat that performance, that behavior. If you stop talking about that it was good or that it was you appreciated it or made a difference, then it can go away, because the silence, the absence of information made it seem like it wasn't important. So if you have also then given corrective feedback along the way in a timely fashion, preferably within 24 hours, so that someone had the opportunity to make a correction. If you've then changed your systems to reflect the way something should go, you've updated the checklist, so to speak, and then you still have the same things happen, now you have to have a more serious conversation of what is going on. Is this something you don't like to do, you don't want to do? Is there something you don't understand to do? And I have had this conversation recently and over the years with agents, with not only new people, but people at 3 years, 5 years in the job, where their performance drops. Mm-hmm. And without getting into their personal business about what is going on, it is important to be able to privately sit down with someone on your team and say, I have seen a decline in your performance. Let's talk about that. Is there something impeding your ability to do these tasks at the level of quality I have seen you perform? What do you need? And if they don't know and they can't do it, or they don't see that, you either have a willingness and attitude or something else going on, but you must hold people to account. If someone says, I'm getting a divorce, or that I have some things going on at home, or I haven't really been feeling well, and then is this something that, is a temporary situation for you? And then you can ride things out with people. I've been an employee and been through divorce. I've been an employee and gone through the death of my mother. I was not at my best, but I didn't lose my job over it. But I'm sure my performance declined at those times. So if you want longstanding employees, right, who are going to be with you a long time, they're going to go through life. Mm-hmm. They're going to have illness, or things happen in their family, or they're just going to, be off sometimes. But if you have those conversations along the way and you have performance that people can't do, then sometimes it's time to part ways. And this is why I'm reading Fierce Conversations with Susan Scott. I had just started it. I can't believe I haven't known about this book, but I'm so curious to be able to learn more, to help more people be able to have these very frank, honest, direct conversations, because I definitely work with agents that tend to want to give only praise, and others who are highly critical and forget to give praise. But these conversations that are fierce, that really can make a difference, there is a growing need to have that, particularly if you want people who take initiative, who have high sense of personal responsibility. You have to address things to keep that on track.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned Fierce Conversations. We do a book club at Pro REA. Since we're a virtual team, we meet on Google Hangouts once a week, and we're just starting Fierce Conversations next week. And of course, Sarah, being our cheerleader on the team, has downloaded the study guide. We have checklists. We have homework before the first one. That's what happens when you have real talent on your team. They just dig in and tell you what to do, like we talked about earlier.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's amazing.
It's really wonderful.
So let's switch gears and talk about these admins who now get to have their own employee. They're transitioning from being a real estate assistant into an operations manager, and some of the challenges that they face during that transition.
Mm-hmm. It's very similar to some of the same phases that the agent goes through. It's wonderful to know the job. There is that advantage. If you have been the closing coordinator, before that you were the generalist that did listings and closings, and now you're going to become the team manager and be able to hire people, to be in transactions or closings and listings. And then there's also a runner. In fact, there's a team I'm working with now that's just about to go through this. So there's the setting expectations and being able to verbalize what it is that you want people to do. Certainly there's a variety of all sorts of people who like to be in the administrative field, but they also tend to be sometimes more introverted, which means they process more in their mind than they do from talking and communicating about it. So that will be a new habit. Salespeople are very accustomed to talking up a storm, and so that tends to be easier for them. So being able to set those expectations, then being able to give feedback, both praise and correction. And if you are internally promoted and now you are managing people who used to be your peer, that is not uncommon in the corporate world, but that is in small businesses, right? Where, there's only 3, 5, 6 people on the team. That then needs to be something where you command a respect and that you are able to have a humility about your responsibility, that you are a servant leader. From that, that's a term I think Michael Hyatt also uses, that where you are there to support their success. And so there's learning how to be able to do that. So like I think with any promotion, and that means even if you go from doing 50 deals as an agent to 100 deals and having staff, those are all promotions. That there's internal work that people need to do, as well as habits and skills that need to be learned, so that you are working on your mindset, you're working on what you say, how you say things, your tone, your versatility, the skill of actually being able to do these things. These are not necessarily innate things people know how to do. And so they beat themselves up because they think, I should already be good at that. Not necessarily. And so that's one of the reasons why at Atlas, I have an admin group coaching program that talks about mechanics and operations and checklists and systems, and a leadership group coaching program, which at this point has been agents, but I can now see, I talked with an agent yesterday, that when this promotion happens, we want this new admin to be in this leadership coaching program, because it does talk about what are these, I don't even like to call them basics because that makes it sound too simple, but these core skills that everyone has to learn how to do that. It's okay. But there is that transition, and I do think that requires support. I think that is very difficult to do on your own without a support system of some sort, including outside education and support to be able to practice, because it takes practice.
Right. Well, I was talking to a team recently about this, and the admin, who is now the director of operations, told me, I want everyone to like me. I want to be nice. It's really hard to say, no, you can't have that vacation day because you've already taken all of your vacation and now I'm the bad guy. And her boss was really wonderful about this because they role played that conversation together. The boss stayed out of it. And I think this was so key on the agent's part to say, no, that is your employee. You're going to have the conversation. I'm here to support you and coach you. We can role play it, but I will not have that conversation with your employee, because I will not have that person circumventing you and think, ask mom, she says no, ask dad, maybe you'll get a yes. And that happens. And if you're not really cognizant of it as the lead agent, and you take away your director of operations power, then now you're just managing a lot of people. And that wasn't the point. Right. So, so they role played, and she had the difficult conversation, and she got through it, and she's now doing performance reviews and getting more confident around it. But it was really interesting to watch her progression through that and some of the struggles she had. And I'm just so proud of her agent for really just being in the background and being a coach, because I've seen it go the other way before. So.
Yes, I think it's Jeffrey Fox that is How to Be a Great Boss, that talks about being friendly, but not being the friend. Advisory role. It's not that you can't, go out and have lunch or, have drinks, every now and then, or have a party together, but it does mean that there is a level of boundary where this is your responsibility in this role, to be able to hold, steady to what was agreed upon by the team. And sometimes that feels like, that's the person who has to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. And then what's the consequence of that? Then, what's plan B?
Perfect. So when a assistant becomes a director of operations or takes on a leadership role, they also start to take on more of that, the role of the culture keeper, sort of in tandem with their lead agent. Do you talk about how teams effectively implement their vision within the team and keep it top of mind, and how both agents and then other leaders within their organization can apply some of these best practices?
So having the vision, values, and goals of the business integrated into everything you do is part of that answer. So if on the job descriptions, the weekly goal sheets, whatever methods you're using to keep track of where are we. And I do recommend, we have at Atlas what's called a roadmap. And so that for a month or a quarter, you have a plan of what are you going to work on. I often talk about the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, because it taught me that while you're doing everyday business, you want to have 3, 4 big, hairy, audacious goals, of projects that you're working on outside taking care of everyday business, which in real estate are transactions. So in addition to having transactions, you are working on these other things. Well, how are you keeping track of that? So if this is our vision, where we want to be, the most exemplary level of competence and service in a real estate business, certainly within our community. And then if your values are that you, like Atlas, we believe in empathy, the pursuit of excellence. And so those become the guardrails on your interstate, that you're on the highway to get to your goals. But this is then how you evaluate making choices. If you're going to take a shortcut, is this the pursuit of excellence, or this is just a time saver? If you believe in empathy, then when you have a client that's having a really hard time letting go of the home they've lived in for 55 years, and they need to talk a few more minutes, then have some empathy for that. This is a very big thing that's happening in their life. And so then you decide, to relax on the phone and spend a few more minutes because you know that, this is standing up for the values in your business. If in your weekly team meeting and in our signature training program for admins, REA 101, we have a team dynamics module number 4 with the sample team meeting agenda. And you can have in there, so, okay, here's our vision. These are our values. Here's our goals for the year. Here's where we are year to date. Here are the topics, so that you're keeping that top of mind. And that you have monthly check-ins one-on-one with people. You certainly, if you don't have monthly, you need to have quarterly updates. There's lots of books, including Traction by Gino Wickman, that talks about just in human nature, people can't usually go more than 90 days without sort of veering off track. And so that's one of the ways you can do it. And it is also, as someone becomes a director of operations, or even in any admin leadership role, whatever that title might be on the team, that admins can run team meetings. It does not need to be an agent that runs the team meeting. Admins are really good at agendas and timeframes and following through. So let that be a part of their job. You can get information from the agent can participate, but the agent does not need to run that meeting.
Mm-hmm. And often they don't want to run that meeting. They just want to show up. So that's a win-win on both sides, I think.
Yeah, they get to be creative. They get to chime in, but they don't have to have the responsibility of, okay, that was 7 minutes. Let's go. That can be your admin.
Exactly. I want to go back to what you're talking about, integrating the values and using those as a benchmark for what we do. When I interviewed Michelle Chote for the podcast, she talks about this. When she worked for a real estate agent and she helped him double his business in 18 months. She said one of the things that helped her achieve that was he was very committed to the values. She knew exactly what the values were, and all decisions were based on those values. And because of that, she knew how to make decisions. She had a compass. And so she didn't have to ask permission to do a lot of things, because if it aligned with the values, if it meant going the extra mile for a client, or spending a little bit more time on something, that's what he wanted her to do. She was never going to get pushback for providing outstanding customer service, no matter what that meant, because that was the core value. And that freed her in a lot of ways to really take charge of her role. And, the results speak for themselves.
Yes, I love that. This is another example of the awareness that I, grew into over the last 6 years, because people would come to me with problems on their team. And I'm known for my analogies. And so in a medical analogy, I felt kind of like sometimes I would learn about the problem too late. It's like, I'm sorry, I wish you had come to me 2 years ago. I could have saved this, but I can't save this. You have cancer, and so I realized I don't really want to be in the cancer business. I don't want to be in oncology. I want to be in preventative medicine. I want to be teaching you how to make a green smoothie, and go to yoga and have a massage once a month. And this is part of that. If you have a vision and values that you believe in, and you set up these pieces of your infrastructure, it is so much more fun and easy to be able to do well and to feel satisfaction in what you're doing, and then be able to make decisions based inside these guideposts, because you cannot make a procedure for everything that's going to happen. Oh, no. You can't predict that. There's too many variables, right?
We have people involved in real estate transactions, and people,
right. People and real estate.
Yeah, it means anything is possible.
Right.
Well, as we wrap up, I want to make sure that we talk about your course. So what was the inspiration for creating the Alliance by Atlas event?
So this was definitely where I tried to work with teams to collaborate and come together and get on the same page. And I would have a 1-hour video session. And then I would work individually, one-on-one with the agents and the admins. And it was happening in some pieces, but it was not the same thing as really being able to work together. And this is a classic business issue. This is sales and operations.
Yeah.
And they are different worlds. And there needs to be a bridge of this communication. So I also found that agents went to lots of seminars, had a one-on-one coach. They would go to classes, and the admins got training much of the time when they first started, not all the time. And I have a solution for that too. And then the admins might have something in their office, but they had no ongoing ability to keep growing unless they did that themselves. So, and there were no functions that I really knew of where agents and their admins came together to work on this because it is completely integrated in the business. So the Alliance by Atlas event is success from the inside out on day one. And then it is practical application of what are you going to do over the next several months to put this into action. So it is really working together to understand, well, what is the vision and where do you want to go? And what are the values that are important to you? And what are the values that are important to your admin? And then what are the personalities involved and how does that play into how we communicate? And what are the goals? And then what does that mean to the admin that you want to do make these goals happen? Then what does that look like? Can they really do that? And with how many people is that going to take? You want to double your business? Okay, we got to look at the workflow, which creates this domino effect. And then really putting that into play. Do you have an employee handbook? So then the human resources function of the business really starts to roar up because you have compliance in real estate. You and I talked about this the other day. You have compliance in real estate. Then once you get into business, you have compliance about taxes. And then you have compliance about labor, about human resource issues. And all of these things must have an infrastructure so that your business doesn't hit a sinkhole or a pothole or
a lawsuit.
or just a cancer, just upset where things are out of alignment and now you've had all this great momentum and now, something snapped. And so the Alliance by Atlas event was really designed to get on the same page. And then in terms of, the training that we alluded to, the fact that I created our signature training program, REA 101, which is online on demand. It's for real estate admins. Maybe they have no real estate experience and they're going to learn about that. Maybe they have lots of real estate experience. We've had this happen too several times now over the last 18 months that it's been on the market, that they can go deeper into a topic where maybe they only had surface responsibilities before as a generalist. But the fact that new people need training information instantly. And you can go through the training program in 13 hours if you want to. There's also a bonus module on there for agents called the Keep Calm Guide to have better communication with your admin. And so in 23 minutes, I am able to give them a lot of information about how to be a better manager.
I love that. I love everything you do, and I'm so grateful for you. And as for everyone listening, Kathleen and I have worked together for years now, and what we found is when we find a great admin, we put them through Kathleen's training, and the agent and the assistant get training, our placement success rate shoots up. I mean, there is a significant difference, and I've lost track of what it is now, but I want to say, do you remember I don't even remember what the rate is, but it's significant. What is it?
It used to be that the success or the failure rate could have been as high as 30%, and it dropped to 3%.
That's right. Thank you. I knew almost everybody who goes through Kathleen's program sticks. So it goes to show you how many missed opportunities there are. If that many people who get coaching and training and support are able to make it work, think about all those placements and all that time and energy and money that was wasted because we stopped short of that, that final step. You can do all of the skill testing and interviewing and reference checking you want, but if you just say you're done with the process on day one of hire, you've completely missed the boat. So.
And then when they stay in coaching in whatever format that might be, I have, a client that's been with me 3.5 years. I placed her, it was before I knew you, and then I've been coaching her ever since, and she is blossoming in her career and taking on more responsibility, and her agent is so happy and able to do more business and able to go on vacation, and they intend to work together for a long time, And so that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to add group coaching to what Atlas is doing, because I also want these high-powered admins to learn things from each other. They can share whatever the agent wants them to or not to on calls. That's all fine. And I want them to be able to also have role models, because so often high-producing agents are an island. Their admin is alone. There are not very many people, and if there are other people in their office or in their community, they're the agent's competitors. And so to be able to have a network of high-performing admins for them to learn from, look up to, be able to grow into is really priceless for all of the agents. And then for the agents to be able to have a leadership coaching program where they can also learn to be able to be that leader, that manager, to grow in that responsibility is also something I know that will benefit them for many years to come.
Absolutely. Well, I will include all of Kathleen's information, including the Alliance by Atlas events dates. There are 9 dates scheduled for the rest of 2019. The next one is in Los Angeles in July, and then Toronto, and then you're going to be very busy for the next 6 months.
I will be on the road.
On the road and busy, and I'll put all of that information in the show notes. So thank you, Kathleen. It was so great to see you and connect with you.
My pleasure. You too. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Offer Accepted, the podcast for fostering careers in real estate and growing a successful real estate team. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. You can also check us out on YouTube. Search Pro REA Staffing and you'll find this and a ton more content all around hiring and managing your growing real estate team and launching your career in real estate. We'll see you in the next episode.